Hello, it's Marsingin here, bringing you another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video. And so I haven't done one of these for a while, and since the Golden Week dual Dokkan Fest units are out, I thought it would be about time to do another Dokkan Fest TURs tier list. So this tier list is basically just going to be the standard like top 10 format. It's the easiest way to do these kind of lists, but I mean, I have talked about in the past, I do think sometimes depending on the event that you're taking on, units obviously can move like up or down a space or two. And these things, tier lists are kind of fun to do, but I don't take them like super seriously. So as I often say on these kind of list videos, these are obviously all just my opinion. They are based on my experience playing the game like with the units. So obviously some I will like more than others depending on my experience with them. You might have had better experience with those units, so you might like them more than others. But at the end of the day, it's all just opinion. If you disagree, that's all good. Let me know why down below in the comments, but just keep it respectful, right? We can all have our own opinions. We don't have to agree all the time. And I'm perfectly happy to listen to criticisms of the list and change my mind about some of the placements potentially, as long as the arguments are civil. So let me know what you think down below in the comment section, and then obviously once you have seen the full list, let me know what your top 10 list would look like down below. Now, before I bring up the first image here, it's a unit that you guys might not expect to see at the number 10 spot. But bear in mind that this is for global specifically, because I don't like to try and rate units that I haven't really had a proper chance to use in a bunch of different situations. So there are no JP only units on here. And then when we start off at the bottom, I put together what I thought was the top 9 fairly quickly, and then I could not decide who to put at number 10. So I've picked a couple of units that I think could have some arguments for being at number 10, right? And I think the first one will probably surprise a lot of people, and that is this AGL Kid Gohan. Now, he's a very old unit, right? He's almost 2 years old at this point, but I think the reason why I decided to put him as an honourable mention at the bottom of the list is because I still find myself using him on a lot of teams, right? And obviously now that we've just gotten a load of buffs for Piccolo, he obviously has an ally that he can get his unit super attack a lot easier. In fact, with the physical Piccolo EZA, running them together on the same team shields this guy from one of his major issues, which is obviously taking super attacks very early on in the event, because we'll be able to see where they are. And then his active skill with the heal for the team, giving everyone a defensive buff, giving himself guard. Like, I found that super useful in a bunch of different events. So I wouldn't make a strong case that I think he is definitely number 10, but I think he is a worthwhile, like, honourable mention for the bottom of this list. And then next up we have Captain Ginyu. Captain Ginyu has dropped out of the top 10 for a lot of people over on JP, because obviously some of the new releases that they've had, but because we are missing those, he's a unit that I think you could make an argument for being in the top 10, mainly because of his leader skill, right? Other than, like, if we're not talking about LRs, he probably has one of the better extreme leader skills than some of the other units that are obviously higher than him on this list. So you can still make a very good team with him. He can still be very good. The Ginyu Force team itself, like if you're a newer player, maybe you snagged a copy of Ginyu the last time he was on a banner, you can basically build his team pretty much with free-to-play units, and you can still beat most events in the game, except for the top-tier difficulty ones. So I think Ginyu still has an argument for being one of the better TURs. And then lastly, I know a lot of people don't like this unit, but the STR Goku and Gohan, mainly because of their leader skill, right? Super Saiyans or Goku family is a pretty ridiculous leader skill when it comes to doing things like EZAs, various different challenges for like certain categories. Like, you can put together so many good teams out of the combo of these guys' leader skill. Now, they lost a lot of their appeal as events have gotten harder and slightly shorter. You obviously can get very screwed over with not getting additional supers for Goku, taking ages to be able to exchange him into Gohan, and then even once you get exchanged into Gohan, he takes a while to build up. Like, I think most people even now would still agree, if this card just started off as Gohan on turn 1, even if he still had the passive of having to build up, he probably would still be in the top 10, I think. Especially now with the update on JP, although that hasn't come to global yet, the update that allows him to counter supers even against enemies that can't dodge. Enemies that disable dodge. I think that increases his stocks quite a little bit. Like, if he started off as this card, I think there probably are units that I have in this top 10 list that I would put him above. But unfortunately, he doesn't. But I do think the Goku gets underrated. Like, even though it's not a high chance, right? It's medium chance, right? He can dodge after he supers. Each dodge he gets, he builds up stats. Like, I've had him in some of the tougher events. Like, once he's got his 3 dodges off, he tanks, like, all normals, basically. So he can still be pretty good, although I understand why people don't like him. Let me know your thoughts down below. Like I said, I really struggled to pick a unit that I would put at number 10, whereas I found the 1 to 9 placements quite a bit easier. So anyway, let us move on to number 9. So number 9 is Majin Vegeta. I still think Majin Vegeta is very good. He obviously got a huge stock increase back when Vegeta and Trunks released, so he finally had a meta-relevant unit with Trunks in the name that he can be run with. I still like to run him as, like, on the main team build if I'm running the Vegeta and Trunks team. I just really like the card, really like the animations. Obviously, when you have a Trunks on the team and you're picking up those 6 orbs, he's very, very good defensively, especially post-super attack. I'm pretty sure I used him in some of my earliest Cell Max runs as well, even when we weren't using like a full-on Majin Vegeta family team. As long as he fit on the team like lead, then he could be useful for that event. So I do still think Majin Vegeta is pretty good. I've talked about it in the past with other videos. Like, when you compare Goku family to Vegeta family as categories, obviously Goku family just absolutely dwarfs the Vegeta family. There's less options for characters for a start, but if the Vegeta family category ever gets some like really big, really good buffs, then I feel like this guy could still be useful quite some time from now, even like as long as that team is still running a meta-relevant Trunks, which, I mean, it's going to take a while for Vegeta and Trunks. I know a lot of people are considering them out of the top 10 of overall, like, every single unit in the game, like, best units, but when it comes to making a Vegeta family team, I think it's going to be a long time before they're out of the list of units that you would want to bring on that team. And then as long as you've got them, this guy obviously is going to look pretty good. So missing the 6 orbs is the most awkward part. You do only change orbs with him when you're at 88% or less HP, but otherwise I think he is very, very good. So now we're going to start getting into some of the more controversial placements, because at number 8 I have Yamcha. I am not a huge fan of him personally, and again, this is where it just comes down to personal experience with the unit, right? Because one of the ways that you want to use him, you don't have to, of course, but one of the ways you want to use him is put him in slot 1. He gets a dodge, so he gets an additional super. And then obviously the more supers he does, the more dodge he builds up, so he can dodge upcoming attacks after he's attacked. The number of times I've taken him and his team into tough events and then he just doesn't dodge in slot 1 and gets absolutely destroyed is very disappointing to me. So if you're not running him in slot 1, then obviously he still has some good tech, he can still do good damage, he still has the active skill, but like, for me personally, I just feel like there's no reason to run him other than his leader skill. Now obviously he has a very good leader skill because Warriors Raised on Earth is such a good lead, and with the extra 30% going to Earthlings and Turtle School, it means he covers pretty much every single Goku in the game. So you could, if you wanted to, run a team of like all the best Goku units and then Yamcha just as the leader, potentially just using him as a 3rd slot floater. But in those situations, obviously, he doesn't really share a lot of links with Goku's. So it's not exactly the most optimal setup. And that is why, and I feel like a lot of people will disagree with him, with this, but in the spot above him at number 7, I have Tech Bardock. Now, I can already hear people saying like, oh, you're just a Bardock fanboy, that's why he's higher in the list, blah, blah, blah. But I think Bardock is really good. I think he's super underrated, although I probably wouldn't ever put him any higher than this. Like 7 maybe is me being a little bit generous, but talking about some of the things I just talked about for Yamcha, his leader skill, Goku family and then Pure Saiyans as the 200%, you could also make a team of all your best Gokus. However, this guy not only will actually link with them, but he has a scouter effect, and obviously when you're running a Goku, he gets his his intro animation, which is how you get the scouter effect. I just think when comparing the 2 units, having a scouter for the first 5 turns is much more useful than being able to dodge, potentially. And like I say, a list. I said at the very beginning, a lot of this list comes down to my personal experience. It's just for me, I have had a lot of occurrences of Yamcha just not dodging attacks. And after my initial set of videos when he came out, trying him out in some different events, both on and off camera, I pretty much haven't used him since then. Whereas I think Bardock can make a very good, very strong team. Storied Figures has some decent like add-in units. Units like Physical Fasha and Int Torah, whilst they're not like the best side banner units in the game or general pool units, that team can actually look very impressive. The free-to-play Team Bardock team units are actually pretty good as well. So for me, this guy ticks a lot of boxes that the Yamcha doesn't. And you know, with him fully built up, I've had videos recently where I've been using him on teams where, you know, he's hitting like 10 million attack stats when fully built up. He's showing you where the enemy super attacks are. Even though it's only for 5 turns, if you're bringing a team full of very good Goku units, you can use those 5 turns to get set up, basically to then dominate the whole of the rest of the event. And then once the scouter runs out, you're into that situation where then the only advantage Yamcha has over him is the dodge, whereas I just like this guy a little bit more. And like I said at the beginning, my opinion, if you think Yamcha's better than Bardock, then that's fine. Just for me personally, in my experience, I like using Bardock more. So, number 6, we have Gamma 2. I think we might as well mention at number 5 I have Gamma 1. So I have the Gammas at 5 and 6. Both of these guys are really good. Gamma 1 is definitely the better of the two, mostly because he can still be really, really good on a team. Like, I will still consider running him on a team, even without Gamma 2. Whereas I don't think there are really any situations where I run Gamma 2 without Gamma 1, because obviously he's the more offensive focused one. Of course, the more supers you do, he does keep building up defense. He can still be good defensively. He has the Ki Blast nullification super, so obviously if you're fighting a Ki Blast super boss, then he can still be very, very good defensively, right? Because if he super attacks enough times, he'll tank normals, and then of course he will potentially nullify the super, because it's not guaranteed. Whereas of course with Gamma 1 you get him built up early on and then he's just incredibly powerful. He has the guard for the first couple of turns so you can get him built up, and then of course he has the counter for unarmed super attacks, which can also still be useful in a couple of the red zone stages. So these two I think are very, very good. They've received some good buffs recently. They work well on teams with like the Piccolos and stuff like that, so these two are very, very good. So they are at 5 and 6. So for number 4, we have Kid Goku. I know there's an ongoing debate in the community about whether Kid Goku is better than Gamma 1. I've seen a lot of people have Gamma 1, then Kid Goku, then Gamma 2. For me personally, the reason why I put Goku over the Gamma 1 now is because of the teams that we have that are in the game now, right? Like this guy, when the LR Ultimate Gohan came out, this guy was one of his best link partners, as well as creating orbs, making it easier for him to get his 20 Ki and get those additional supers. And of course, now that we have the 23rd World Tournament Goku, this guy's one of the best link partners for him as well. And then, of course, he creates orbs, pick up 7 orbs, he gives everybody on the rotation damage reduction. Like, whilst it's not support in terms of actual numbers, like giving allies 30% defense or whatever, damage reduction is a very powerful support ability to give to the other units on the team. So I feel like I find myself dropping this guy into teams as the 6th unit quite frequently, whereas I don't really do that so much with the Gammas. And of course, not only does he give everybody damage reduction, but the more rainbow orbs you pick up, the more damage reduction he gives to himself as well. So once you've got this guy like duped out, if you're picking up like 3, 4, or even the mythical 5 rainbow orb turn, he can tank hits pretty well. This is a unit that I absolutely would recommend building full dodge if you get dupes for him, because that's the main reason why I would use him on the team, right? He goes on the team to either be a link partner or a floating support who's just there to orb change and provide damage reduction to everybody. So he can still hit very good numbers as well, but I would absolutely build him for full dodge. He has the built-in ability to get an additional super, and he gives allies, including himself, crit chance with the orbs that he picks up as well. So full dodge I think is the way to go. But yeah, especially with the new units, especially the new Goku, I find myself using this guy quite a lot. So he takes the number 4 spot. So then at number 3, we have Physical God Goku. Funny to think that this guy probably was the best TUR in the game until like a week ago. I think he absolutely dwarfed like every single unit on Global at the time. The 60% chance to dodge as long as you get his orbs like is just insane. Having guard, he stacks up super quick. Now one thing you will notice, when his entrance animation buff wears off and he loses the extra 100% attack, you do see those attack stats drop a little bit, but they don't drop to unacceptable levels, right? Like you'll see turns of him dropping like a 9, 10 and then 11 million attack, and then on the next turn he's doing like 6 and 7, but he's still stacking, he's going to build back up, and of course his defense stacks up very, very quickly. So in most cases, even if you don't dodge, he's tanking all normals for double digits. And then I put up a short not that long ago of him surviving AGL Broly's super attack without any links active, because he was next to another God Goku. Now he took a lot of damage, obviously, but we didn't die. So taking AGL Broly's super attack with no links active and no items is pretty good for a unit who you would think, when you look at his kit, like his defense relies on dodge, but he's able to stack up so quickly that he doesn't really rely on the dodge. Now obviously you need to get stacks, so if you go into like the Metal Cooler Core and then on turn 4 he doesn't dodge a super from the Metal Cooler Core, then obviously he is going to die. But Metal Cooler Core doesn't disable dodge, so he has the 60% chance, plus any extra you may have given him in the hidden potential. I just think this guy, until the 23rd World Tournament units came out, I think it was very clear that this guy was the best DOKKANFEST TUR on Global. So, obviously, spoiler alert, you know, pretty obvious that as we're at number 3, that Goku and Piccolo are number 1 and number 2, but which one is which? And this is a discussion that I've seen going on, obviously, since they released. I know people on both sides of the argument. And so, drum roll, here we go. Number 2, I have Goku. So, yeah, Piccolo is at number 1. Now, for me, Goku at number 2, it's really close. Let me start off by saying that, right? It is super close. And I think if you put Goku over Piccolo, I can see the arguments for it. I wouldn't be like, you know, super argumentative about that. I can see one being over the other. Now, Goku is an interesting one. I think his standby, it's kind of disappointing for Global, for him being the first standby unit. It's kind of difficult to see his standby. Now, the thing is, it's not the end of the world, because they have compensated for this fantastically by giving him this new wording that no unit has ever had before, where he activates this extra part of his passive where he or another unit revives, which obviously makes him very, very good. I put up a video, I think it was the day before yesterday, showcasing the strategy of just bringing Metal Cooler on his team, because he has powerful comeback as one of his leads. Get Metal Cooler to die very early on, then he revives, this guy gets his full buff, and then Goku goes absolutely crazy. Once he's gotten his full buff, I think you could argue him being number 1. I think maybe I would put him at number 1. If he just had this buff from the start, he would be number 1. And the only thing that can be annoying sometimes is getting this to go off, because his own standby is so difficult to get. And I've seen a lot of people, you know, thought that Tech Carnival Goku stocks were going up with this guy's release. But on this team, because it's so good and so powerful, I had runs during the initial showcases where I just could not get, like, Tech Carnival Goku to revive, because I was never dropping below the 59% HP. And the problem with Carnival Goku is, if you're sitting at like 70-80% HP, and then he gets super attacked in slot 1 by, let's say, the Metal Cooler Core, then he just dies, and his revival wasn't actually active, so you just lose. And then when it comes to Piccolo, this guy's just an absolute monster. Like, his team seems really bad. Like, his leader skill, when you compare him to Goku, I think everybody, when the details first were released, thought that his leader skill was terrible. But you can actually make a pretty strong team with this. And again, some of this is down to personal experience, but you guys have seen, if you've watched them all, the showcases that I've been putting up when these guys came out, taking them against all the different Red Zone bosses. And Piccolo's team, I basically no-itemed all of those bosses on the first try, whereas Goku's team, I had instances where I died because of things like I already mentioned, like not being able to get the revive off with Carnival Goku or anyone. a big problem with these guys is they guard for the first turn, so then on their second appearance, Goku doesn't have guard. Depending how many times he got hit in the first turn, and depending how much defense he's built up, he could then get absolutely blasted on that second turn. Now, don't get me wrong, like, in my initial showcase, I think he got hit like 5 times on turn 1. So literally on turn 2, he had like 700k defense, which is insane. But yeah, I think he is still a fantastic unit. Like I say, it's very, very close between these two. But I think the thing that cinches it for this guy is because he has the giant form, he obviously has this mechanic that everyone's kind of using at the moment where you can cancel out the enemy super attacks. His giant form can actually do some decent damage because he's still effective against all types and he has a chance to crit. He's also getting extra ki, so it's not super difficult to get his supers unless you get really bad orbs. And then you come out of the giant form and then he has the active skill, which is 4th turn or when 50% or less HP or against multiple enemies. Does a big AoE that does mega colossal damage. Action breaks all of the enemies for 1 ability. So obviously this guy's now like the best world tournament unit as well. But he has this thing with his passive where because he's getting extra stats by super attacking in slot 2, you can use his active skill in slot 2, which gives him the extra 100% attack and defense. Then you put him in slot 1 and he gets hit first, and then he gets this additional 60% after receiving an attack. So even at like 55%, I've seen turns of him hitting like 14, 15, 16 million like attack stats after using his active skill in turn 2, which is just absolutely, or slot 2, which is just absolutely insane. So for me, Piccolo is at number 1. Be interesting to see who the part 2 LR of this celebration is and if they directly buff one of these guys' teams. But the great thing is, I mean, you can use these guys together, right? You can use them on Goku's team because Piccolo's on Earthbred Warriors, or Warriors Raised on Earth. So you can even use them together and they work very well, even just linking with each other. So very, very close, regardless of which one you guys would have at 1 or 2. I probably wouldn't argue too much. But for me, I think Piccolo is at number 1. So that is it for the top 10 list. Here's the actual, the full image here. There you go, make it full screen. That's the full image, 1 to 10. 10 is kind of, like I say, more sort of 3 honourable mentions for the slot 10, as opposed to an actual concrete, like this is the unit that I think is number 10. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Like I say, keep it civil, keep it respectful. I'm happy to discuss these opinions and your opinions with anybody who wants to comment down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below for the Discord and the merch store, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.